Every garden has weeds, and we can spend a lot of time getting rid of them. But the surprising thing is that many of these weeds are actually better eating than some of the vegetables we are intentionally growing. These edible weeds can be nutritionally superior, they're clearly easier to grow, and they can taste better too. So today, instead of throwing away these unwanted guests, we're going to eat them. So let's meet some of the common weedy culprits, including this lot here, nettles, which are one of the most nutrient-dense wild greens you can possibly eat, including this lot here. Nettles are the very first weed I actually ate, and as a young lad I remember being completely blown away by the fact that you could actually eat weeds. I went out into the woods and gathered the tips and made my own nettle soup, and my goodness, does it make a truly splendid soup, full of vitamins, minerals and iron. Absolutely outstanding taste, not too dissimilar to spinach. Nettles grow as upright plants. They love fertile soil, so are often seen growing at the edges of compost heaps or alongside borders. And spring is absolutely the perfect time to pick them because the young growth at the centre here is still very much tender and mild and very good eating. Now, before tucking into any of the weeds we'll be looking at today, a quick reminder, but it is important. Only eat weeds that you can confidently identify, and don't pick from any areas that might have been sprayed with chemicals or where dogs might have done their business. And of course, thoroughly wash your greens before using them. Cooking wild greens is also a really good way to make them safer. And harvesting nettles couldn't be any easier. Now, unless you're a complete masochist, I would suggest wearing gloves so you don't get stung. And then what you want to take is the very top of the nettle, the young growth right at the centre, like that is perfect. It's a bit like picking tea, I imagine, getting the young, soft, supple growth right at the centre of the plant, and that's going to taste the very best as well. Now, the older nettle leaves that you get later on in summer don't make good eating, and they can potentially irritate your kidneys, so please do stick to the fresh, young spring growth. Don't worry, once you cook spinach, all of those stings just disappear, though even the stings of stinging nettles are in fact good for you. They may be good for arthritis, and the intense stinging sensation can disrupt pain signals that can actually help with joint pain. Nettles are fantastic in soup, of course, but also wilted into pasta and risotto or whizzed up into a pesto. And it makes a great tea as well. Regular harvesting naturally helps to keep plants under control, but I'd say please do keep a few patches of nettles around your garden. They're a fantastic food plant for all sorts of caterpillars, for the good guys of different types of butterflies and moths that will then go on to pollinate your garden. This one plant can really help to boost the wildlife in your garden. It's a happy, healthy and delicious weed to have. And for more on the joys of nettles, please do check out our video on that, which I will link to below. The humble dandelion might be one of the most versatile weeds you can possibly eat because you can eat the leaves, the flowers and even the root. Every last scrap of it is edible. It's also immensely good for you with lots of vitamin A, C and calcium. Dandelions form low rosettes of toothed leaves, which is actually where it gets its name from. It's the French Dandelion, which means lion's teeth, and you can see how and why. Curiously, this is known as pissenlit in French, which translates as wet the bed, a nod towards its diuretic effect, flushing out bladders and kidneys to support their health. At this time of year, they're a very common and I might say glorious sight, popping up in lawns and beds all over the place. Now, the Victorians really prized dandelions, seeing them as a very valuable multi-purpose plant that they actually cultivated, so they never saw it as a weed at all. First up are the leaves. Now, picked young, they are far less bitter and very tender indeed, and make a fantastic addition to a springtime salad. The cheery flowers can be used in fritters and syrups or to make a beautiful golden and delicious dandelion wine. But for me, the very best part of the dandelion are the roots. Dig them up, wash them off, then roast and grind them as a truly exceptional coffee alternative. And I will link to our video on that down below. It just goes to show there's much more to the dandelion than meets the eye, and to think that most gardeners try to eradicate this beauty. Check it out. Chickweed is one of the most tender, mild-tasting weeds that's often very abundant in the springtime garden. It grows low and sprawling with delicate stems and tiny white star-shaped flowers. Pick it now while growth is still lush and soft by simply snipping off or just picking off the top growth between your finger and thumb. Chickweed has a mild, slightly sweet flavour that's perfect in salads, sandwiches, smoothies or pestos, and regular picking will help to keep it under control. I reckon the very best way to use this is in a salad with perhaps a delicious but simple dressing of freshly squeezed lemon juice and extra virgin olive oil drizzled over the top. Yum! Now here's a weed that divides gardeners, ground elder, and it's called ground elder because the leaves look very much like the leaves of the elderberry shrub, and if I hold them side by side you can kind of see what I mean. This vigorous spreader was introduced to my neck of the woods by the Romans as both a medicinal herb and a good eating herb as well. It really is quite incredible to think that here in modern day suburbia, this is a descendant of something that was planted by legions of marching Romans to treat the likes of gout, rheumatism and sort of arthritis, and to enjoy as a good snack along the way too. Remarkable. Ground elder forms carpets of fresh green leaves, and it really is best picked in spring, young and tender. Now, you could use it like spinach, for example, or perhaps wilted off with a generous knob of butter and a generous grind of the peppermill. It could be added to soups or as a surprising addition to stir fries. The flavour of ground elder is quite mild and somewhere between about parsley and celery, quite delicious. And of course, like many of the weeds today, regular picking will help to keep this vigorous spreader in check. And then there is garlic mustard, also known as Jack by the hedge, and that's what I love about a lot of weeds, is they're got so many names, a real plethora of them, which makes them little characters in the garden. Now this one here has a kind of garlicky flavour. You can really get that by crushing the leaf. That's quite delicious. Now springtime is the time to harvest garlic mustard when the leaves are nice and thin. It's a biennial, which means in the first year it'll produce some leaves at the ground level, and then in its second year, like now, it throws up these stalks with these pretty white flowers on top. Now the taste is kind of garlicky for sure, but it's also got a slightly bitter aftertaste, but it works really well. It's really very palatable. Garlic mustard is a winner for salads, sauces, pestos and dressings. It's like having a sort of garlic herb in the garden to use as and when. Beautiful. But if you do have too much of it and get sick of it, you can always just pull it up and lay it back down on the ground to dry off as a simple at-hand mulch. Nice. This dainty fellow pops up just about everywhere, cracks in the paving, pots or in beds. It's called hairy bittercress, and it's got these tiny little slightly rounded leaflets and absolutely minuscule white flowers. Now if I pick some, I've got some here as well, it's got a taste that's quite peppery, similar to arugula or rocket, but actually very much like standard cress. Lovely and peppery, and this would make a fantastic addition to a salad or as a springtime garnish to just about any meal. Once it flowers, it sets these little seed pods here which kind of burst open and can spread their seeds far and wide, so harvesting it young like this can stop it spreading, though seriously it's never been a problem in my garden and is very easy just to hoe off. This here is one of my absolute favourite weeds. It's called Goosegrass, cleavers, or as I know it, sticky willy. Now it's sticky because it's got absolutely thousands of minuscule little hooks on it, which makes it act a little bit like Velcro, so that it sticks onto animal fur or feathers or indeed clothing. And it's this rather nifty way of dispersing that makes it incredible fun. There's nothing quite as fun as gathering up a good wodge of sticky willy and then covertly pressing it onto the back of an unsuspecting friend, and then watching them wander about none the wiser like the Green Man. But aside from the jolly japes you can have with it, the young shoots here are also surprisingly good eating. Just pick them quite young at this sort of stage and then cook them off like any other green. They're also great dried to use as a tea. And goosegrass is good for the old stomach as well, helping to ease digestive discomfort such as indigestion or bloating, for example. So some dried leaves, or indeed fresh leaves, steeped in boiling hot water and then beautifully sipped can really help with the good old belly. Or even better, gather up handfuls of this sensationally sticky star to make a wholesome and delicious cleansing detox water. Just take some freshly drawn water and your thoroughly cleaned cleavers and pop them in. Many claim this very simple water is great for the lymphatic system, can help fight infections, and it can even possibly be good for those with high blood pressure too, as it does help lower blood pressure. Just leave it to steep for as long as you wish to impart its lovely cucumbery flavour. Would you believe it though if I told you this common weed is in the same plant family as coffee? In fact, the little seeds it produces later on in summer, once they've dried up, can be gathered up, laid onto a baking tray and roasted in a slow but steady heat to produce a beautiful golden colour. And as they brown up, they even give a bit of a smell like coffee. And once they're done, just grind them up and use them like instant coffee. And it even has a slight hit of caffeine too, like the real thing. Oh, that is good. Plantain is another common weed of lawns and sort of borders, and I've got two different types here and both are edible. This is the broadleaf plantain because of its slightly broad and fleshy leaves, and then I've got here the narrowleaf plantain, also known as ribwort, and they have a kind of mushroomy taste. Now the young leaves are fantastic in salads, or you can let them grow a little bit bigger and use them like a green and cook them off. Another way to enjoy plantain, especially if you have plenty of it, is to gather up the leaves to make plantain leaf chips, similar to kale chips. Just massage them with oil and perhaps a little bit of salt as well, and then either bake them in a very, very low temperature oven or into a dehydrator until they've crisped up beautifully, and then munch on them as a lovely, healthy snack. Just yum. Weeds can be tasty, but I'm certainly not saying you should let your sort of garden turn into an unkempt jungle. A healthy garden does need some weed control, of course. The key, of course, is balance. Hoe off any unwanted weeds while they are still small before they get out of hand. Add mulches to suppress weed growth. And remove persistent spreaders, especially perennial weeds, as needed. But instead of declaring total war on weeds, enjoy the ones that occasionally do sneak through. I think it's better to think of weeds as wildlife-friendly plants that often offer something for free, something tasty that often can be every bit as tasty as the crops we've actually grown ourselves. So next time you're pulling up weeds, pause for a moment because you might just be harvesting your next meal. Now take your weedy wanderings on for another step by heading on over here next. I'll catch you next time.